Namaste. Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back. Welcome to Wednesday Deck Chat. And today I have some very special oracle decks that I have been wanting to share with you for some time. And these decks are ones that are very soulful and I think would make a brilliant monthly draw and a way to do deep personal work. I have been working with Rosy Aronson's deck for some time. I think it was 3 years ago that it came into my hands. And this is the deck that I'm talking about here. The Wisdom Keepers Oracle. And at that time, I was working with the Gene Keys, and I was doing the Gene Keys program. And I had simultaneously decided to pick up the, not the tea leaves deck, but the, it's an I Ching Oracle. I'm trying to think of the name of it. And so I was working the Tao Oracle, and I was working with that deck simultaneously with this one. So I want to kind of go back and just share with you the layers of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck. So yes, this is a deck that you can draw and work with the cards individually without even knowing anything about human design or the Gene Keys or the I Ching, for sure. But if you are interested in working with any of these lenses, we'll call them lenses, this deck adds so much more information. And I'm also going to offer some other ways to work with these decks in a little bit. Okay. Deborah Koff-Chapin, who is the creator of the Portals of Presence, is someone who's been very much a part of my journey. I want to say this past several months, because what I did with her soul cards, I did a video on this, was I turned the 2 oracle decks into a tarot deck, and I have been reading with this, and I've written on them, you can see this is my wheel card. Very, very powerful new connection with these cards. And when I saw that Portals of Presence was available, and knowing how much I was getting out of these cards, I decided that I was going to purchase Portals of Presence. And then I was looking at Portals of Presence, and I went on this rabbit hole trying to find the black and white version of the Wisdom Keepers Oracle deck, because I knew that I had to work with the 2 of them together. So it's been a bit of a journey getting the black and white version deck here. And so today I'm going to share with you probably an unfair side-by-side of these 3 decks. Okay. And then next week, my intention is to create a video called 10 ways to work with these decks, because I have some really cool ideas about how that might evolve. Okay. Welcome, Karen. Thanks for joining. For those of you that are new, hi, I am Sadhana. I'm an intuitive reader and healer. And at this time on Wednesdays, I'm here sharing decks. And so tonight is Portals of Presence and the Wisdom Keepers. All right. And if I need to, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see better. I only have, that's okay. You can kind of see it. What is the magic and mystery of working with a Faces deck? Because I know not everyone is comfortable in working with a Faces deck. What can we learn? How can this kind of deck inspire? Where can it take us? And I think that regardless of whether you're working with portals of presence or you're working with the gene keys, I call it the gene keys deck. It's called Wisdom Keepers deck. Particularly if you're working with the black and white version of the deck, there is this window through which we can wander into the cards. Okay. The eyes definitely are the window to the soul. And I want to read to you the quote or the poem that I put in the description box below. And this is in the black, I believe it's in the black and white book of Rosy Aronson's book, Rosy Aronson's deck. The infinite writes her stories on the contours of the face, the ultimate reality shining forth from living mirrors. The seeker need only cast their gaze upon this holy countenance, lost in open receptivity, absorbed in living light. All other disappears as we breathe alone together, face to face with the mystery. And as I read that, I'm also reminded of mirror work and the way that you can do this without cards. And maybe I'll save that for next week as well, too. Okay. And I did not attempt to place Portals of Presence in an order that would resonate with this deck. As you can see, the black and white version is smaller. The cardstock is quite different, and the energy is very different. And I think what's going to be really interesting here tonight is as we're going through these cards, if there are particular pairs of cards in Portals of Presence and in the Wisdom Keepers that seem to be talking to each other. There may be familiar faces in either deck. And I'd like to talk a little bit about this deck, Deborah Koff-Chapin. So these cards are created through a process called touch drawing. And in the description box below, I have linked the touch drawing page for this particular deck. And there's quite a few videos where Deborah explains her process in touch drawing. Oh, and I seem to have, there we go. Touch drawing. The thing about touch drawing is that it's a bit like finger painting. The fingers, the fingernails, the hands are in contact with the paper and the ink, with the paper, not with the ink. And so there's something about the heart connection that goes into the creating of these faces that feels significant here. I'm not doing a great job with all right. How did this happen? All right, let's just do that. I'm sorry if all the pairs I'm showing you are not side by side. I tried to get these cards in order quickly. So the process of touch drawing is that the ink is spread onto a board or something, and then the paper is put on top of the paint, and then the hands are on top of the paper, creating something quite intuitive. It's a beautiful process. Deborah has many programs built around this, and it has really grown since her development of soul cards. And you can get all that information on her website. Rosy's deck that I worked with, and so this is the one that I've had much longer. You can see there are a lot of details in each of the faces. The moons have significance, the little details of what is living in the fabric. Every time I look at these cards, of course, I see something else. And in the guidebook, there is a story for each of the faces, which I will share with you in a little bit. And then as I was introducing myself to portals of presence, I also have come to see many different things that are in the faces and perhaps little symbols or different things that are arising off the page. I believe that different people are going to connect with these decks in a different way and find working with a deck such as Portals of Presence to be deeper and more mysterious. Other people will connect to this deck more powerfully. It's a very personal experience. There is more, I want to say there's more of a goddess energy in Portals of Presence, and a more of a human experience in the Wisdom Keepers. The faces may be a little bit more familiar, but then when I look at the face on the left that's on the screen right now, I see something familiar. I also see something very significant emerging from the hair that doesn't even, to me, look like hair, which is oddly somehow mirrored in the earrings of the style card. I believe this version of the deck came out in 2015. And I'll tell you when the colored deck came out. Of course, it came after the fact. Rosy Aronson, who is the creator of the Wisdom Keepers deck, has lots of videos on YouTube as well, too, that you can go to for reference. So it was a year later, 2016. So the black and white deck came out in 2015. And then this one in 2016. And the story that I don't remember is, so the Gene Keys sage, the Gene Keys creator is Richard Rudd. And I'm assuming that it was because she created 64 of these cards. There are 64 Gene Keys, like there are 64 grams. What's the word? I was looking for the word earlier in the I Ching. So there's 64 cards in this deck, and there are many more cards actually in Deborah's deck. There's a lot of cards. There's a lot. These are both enormous. 72 cards. 72. And isn't this, to me, this is a very familiar face. Very familiar. So some of them feel more human than others. Hi, Donna. It was my intention. I still haven't done my own personal reading for the year ahead. And I think what I am going to do is to draw one card from each of these decks and work with it each month. But I think there will be one for the year that I will be working with. And I find this really interesting. If you look at the screen right now, there is so much wisdom in both of these cards. The guidebook that Deborah has created for Portals of Presence is full of wisdom, and she has offered many different ways. It's a very thin book, but it's full of great content in how to work with portals of presence. And certainly, you could also apply some of these to the deck that is on the right. So she talks about divination, reflection, um, deep gazing. So deep gazing into a particular aspect, particularly the eyes. And I believe in one of the videos, she talks about starting each of the pictures from the eyes. So each piece of artwork began from the eyes, and that makes perfect sense. It would be, right? Because the eyes would be a portal into connecting with the soul that is present. There's also, she has so many beautiful things here. So she talks about mirroring as well as breathing and vocalization. And one thing that I would suggest if you're interested in working with a deck like this, and I think I will do that next week, 10 ways to work with these decks and give you some specific examples, but is to learn to listen to the card. Yes, I think galactic is it's a beautiful way to describe this card, this deck. And I think there are enough cards in Portals of Presence that it's not, I wouldn't say it's not entirely galactic. There are some human qualities. Now this one feels very human to me. They are not meant to be one person. There is one video where she talks about the Steve Jobs card. I'll point it out when we get to it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Steve Jobs is one of the faces of inspiration. Oh my goodness, look at this pairing. This almost looks like it could be the same. I mean, the mouth is different, but look at the roundness of the face. We don't see the cheeks. I don't know. There's something about this card in terms of the face on the left. The inspiration for these paintings comes through multiple people, and so she talks about the three people, the two besides Steve Jobs, that inspired the particular painting. I am a little disappointed that the black and white deck is smaller because there is so much detail in the artwork. I love the larger deck. You can see all of the fine little lines that are there. So I'm going to get through this set of cards, and then I'm going to share with you a couple of things from the other deck. I wonder if you were to do a draw from both of the decks, and one deck you had a soul with a human body with white skin, and then the other deck had a human body with dark skin. I wonder if it would be possible to see the soul, like imagining they were the same soul in different bodies. I think there's a lot of potential here in working with these kinds of decks. Yeah. Okay. And when I read Karen's comment, one of the things that struck me with portals of presence is that if I was working with these cards with a client, that if someone was going through deep emotional trauma, PTSD, this would not be a deck that I would pull out early on in our time together. At least I think it would be possible to go through the deck and sort the deck into less galactic and more galactic cards, because like I said, there are some humans that are definitely present in the deck. Okay. Again, I'm feeling a similar energy. These were not intentionally matched up, but I'm feeling like there's work that could be done here in seeing soul. Different faces, same soul. Okay. Where's the lightness card for the other deck? Lightness is 30. Oh, I've got these out of order. Okay. All right. So there is no, those aren't, that's not a pair. That's 31 and 60. What have I done? I don't know what I've done. There's 30. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about the word that is on the Wisdom Keepers deck and what that represents. So if you go to the guidebook, it is obviously the cards are numbered, and there is a connection to the gene key, the 30th gene key. There is also, if you were working with the I Ching, you could look at, I'm seeing a blurred camera on YouTube. I don't know why. It has to do with the bit rate or something. Hopefully it will focus. The 30th gene key, or the 30th hexagram. That's the word. And there's something in this work that is very powerful, but you don't have to be working with those programs. You can work with the oracle as it is. The keyword that is on the card is it's referred to as the gift. It's the gift of the 30th gene key, which is lightness, a lightness of being. And in the story that is revealed with this particular gene key, there's also awareness of its shadow as well as its higher frequency. And it's a really brilliant exercise to be working with shadow as well as light frequency simultaneously, to understand that one is the other side of the other, and that we can be in both at the same time. And I want to give you a little bit of a flavor of what goes on with this deck here. So I'm going to read you a little bit of the story. It's too much to share with you here, but there is on the left side is my wisdom story, and then on the right side there is a paragraph that talks about the gift of lightness. Okay. I was said to have shot out of my mother's womb like a rocket, and then nursed like a baby whale. As soon as I could talk, I made people laugh. And as soon as I could walk, I ran everywhere I wasn't supposed to go. I was on a mission to experience every single part of life. So I gobbled it up throughout my teens and found myself becoming a young actor. I wanted to experience the sound of applause, and I loved being able to be anyone and try anything my mind could dream up. Soon I desired the experience of being rich and famous, and so I tried that for a long time. I threw my money around like gum wrappers and chewed up my fans like chips. But those flippant times only made me feel empty and alone, and my sensitive soul hungered for something different and deeper. And I wanted to use every single one of my gifts so that I could have an even bigger impact. And soon I was popular all over the world, but no matter how huge or demanding my achievements were, I still wanted more. For a while, I thought I'd be happy if I could just learn to completely trust my instincts. When I mastered that, all I wanted was for my performances to lift the spirit of all humanity. But I couldn't escape that awful feeling of wanting more. And the story goes on, and the story goes on. And so then it morphs into the section called My Gift to You. And if you were working with the deck with, I'll go to the next card. Actually, let's just stay here. Let's focus on this card. Um, if you were working with this deck with a friend or a client, you could simply read the gift. And here is the gift. I bring good and bad news. The bad, you are not in control of your destiny and you are never going to get rid of your desire. The good, accepting the bad news will free you to trust in life. It's time to fully feel your desires and realize that feeling them doesn't mean acting on them indiscriminately or repressing them. You can welcome a desire into your home without allowing it to control your life. Being human is quite a trip, and life is quite a game. And so there's quite a detailed explanation of the gift, which is the key word on the card. And then there are several questions for contemplation. Okay. Now, this is a very different approach than Portals of Presence, which is completely intuitive. And while Deborah has several suggestions in how to work with the deck, it's less guided and less, I want to say, less directed. She gives an idea of how to work with multiple cards and how to group faces. And I think that's one of the things that I might do is to group the faces into more and less galactic. And this would be quite an exercise, but perhaps there's something about both of these decks that's speaking to me right now. And if I were able to pair some of these cards, I feel that I might get something deeper from the face. I'm not sure, but I may prep that for next week. because I want to come back and look at some specific ways to awaken these faces and to dive into these faces. And so there's a lot of cards in each deck. Me too, Donna. Me too. And there's some sort of magic that's happening here. Not with every card, but this one again, I see something. Can you see it here in this card? There's something going on quite synchronistically with the card on the left, the deck on the left, and the deck on the right. Another reason I'm putting these decks together is that there are journals as well as, I believe, coloring pages from both of these deck creators. So they have really expanded their repertoire and the possibilities for using this as a for healing. I think is quite something. We are on, that is 40 and that's 39. Now here is another message that I think is really important in doing this kind of work. If you're working with faces and doing mirror work, and you're looking into the windows of the soul and you are opening portals, I hope that you are aware of the importance of closing portals. So when we are completed with the work, there's a sense of gratitude that I offer, but also I blow out a candle, I close the deck, perhaps turn the card over, and I acknowledge the closing of the portal. I was sharing this in class today about some experiences I have had where this is the Steve Jobs card. So he was one of three faces that inspired this particular card. And then look to the left. It's a very similar nose. Isn't that interesting? In the central one. So what has happened when I have been racing from one job to the next, one reading or one event to another, sometimes I haven't closed sufficiently. And I found myself driving along and there's somebody in spirit continuing to have a conversation with me, asking me why I didn't share this message or giving me more information. It's quite hilarious. I've actually multiple times had to pull over and do some sort of a closure, get out of the car and clear my space. And I've also done quite a bit of mirror work in regards to past life practices. And I would want to say that is also, it's really important to close the space, to close the portal. Interesting. Okay, let's do a few more. You know what? I don't think I'm going to match them. I think that they are talking just fine to each other without me trying to interfere in the process. And I think this is a good preliminary step here. I know it's a kind of long to look at all these cards. It's a lot of cards, but what I'm imagining here is a feeling or a significant trauma that is emerging from the card that's on the right. And I wonder if going to the book of the deck on the right, if that would also deepen my understanding of the shadow. But I think intuitively I can read this here as well too. And there's something about hats as well too that make it more three-dimensional. Now, this is an interesting combination of cards, is it not? Wow. Hmm. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could do this kind of work more regularly? More silence, less television. I don't even have a television in my house, but I still have the YouTube, Netflix. This is the 57th card, so there's just a few more to go in the Wisdom Keepers. Now, here's an interesting conversation. And we were talking about this in the last Philarkos episode because we've been looking at the knights and then the aces. And the idea of color revealing itself. So there is a power in less color because if you are path working or simply gazing into the eyes of the card, the talk about an open, yes, the color will reveal itself. And so there is a color that is offered obviously in this deck, but you have the opportunity to see this hair in any color that you like. Yeah. So the typo, Donna's typo, Agnya Chakra, AJNA, Agnya Chakra. Yeah, this is wide open, very vulnerable. You would not want to be that open in this dimension. There's something here about the wood and the leaves. Wow. Now, you know what I want to find, I don't know if I can find it. I made such a mess here of the cards. The Robin Williams card. Just for fun. I'm going to see if I can find one of them. Imagine the Robin Williams card next to the portal that is here. Okay. I was just seeing something in the card on the left. And I think there's a story, there's a medicine in the, I love the way you described it, a galactic card. Galactic cards. Working with a soul experience simultaneously as with the human experience. In the Wisdom Keepers deck, I want to say that the highest frequency of the gift. So it's called the Siddhi, Siddhi. Is it talked about? I don't think it might be mentioned in the gift. But it would be available only through practice, only through awareness as well too. So this is the 60th gene key. And another synchronicity, which I didn't mention, I was talking about all the synchronicities that came up in the last hour. I'm doing a deep dive into the Philarkos Tarot. And when I went back to the Gene Keys website, I see that Rosy Aronson and Richard Rudd are doing, it came up a few years ago, but there's a dream workshop and using the Gene Keys as a dream tool. So I've had a lot of things aligning here, inviting me to do dream work and to work, to do some work in liminal space. Okay. This is the 63rd card. I believe, and then there's a couple more here. Yeah, there you go. That's it. So 64 cards in Wisdom Keepers. And in Portals of Presence, there are 70 something. I've lost the number. How many? A lot of cards. So a lot of cards in both of these decks. Yeah. Okay. So my homework, for next week is to put together a list of, I'm going to pick 10 ways to work with this sort of deck and how I would use it and work with it personally, as opposed to, I think personally, as opposed to with a client, but I will include a couple of those as well too. Yeah. So thanks for joining me for this walkthrough, and we'll talk more about this next Wednesday, same time, same place. Okay. Good night.